Hello everybody. Today I'm gonna explain the rules of Ship Adventure Treasure Map. Ship Adventure Treasure Map is a treasure hunting board game for 1 to 4 players. What is the goal of the game? As you can imagine, as a treasure hunting game, the goal of the game is pretty obvious, finding the hidden treasure. In order to do that, each player has to gather all the 4 treasure map pieces and putting all of them together in one puzzle map, which will indicate the coordinates of the hidden treasure by one letter and one figure easily noticeable on the edges of the board. The example given is fictive. We are not going to spoil the game right in the rule explanation, of course. Setup. Before starting the game, a card map has to be chosen among the 4 available. The edges of the board are the first parts we put on the board with colors in this specific orientation. Then we take a look at the card map we choose. As you can see, there is a representation of the board with the 4 edges on it and 4 squares that are representing the 5 big islands with a temple on it. So we put those 5 tiles as indicated, then we put all of the other tiles randomly, and here the board is magically appearing with a high range of possibilities as you can imagine. One exception: if a harbor is totally surrounded by ground, we should reorientate it so it has at least one access to the sea. Then we take all the treasure tokens with the dice visible and we order them in 3 groups depending on how many dice are represented on their front. We pick up 4 treasure tokens among the 9 with 1 die represented. The treasure tokens are put on all of the temples except on the temple of the middle, which stayed empty. The ship of each player starts on the harbor of his color, and the 4 black pirate ships start on the 4 Skull Islands. The orange galleon ship is put aside for the moment. Step in a turn. First step, the compass. At the beginning of each turn, we turn the spin of the compass in order to appoint the first player of the turn. Then the players play clockwise, and when every player has played, we turn the compass again. How do we read the compass? It depends on the number of players. If there are 4 players, we just take a look at the inner circle. In this case, the blue player is gonna be the first player. If there are 3 players, and there is no player with the color appointed in the first inner circle, then we take a look at the second inner circle. In this case, no blue player, so the red player is gonna be the first player for this turn. If there are 2 players and neither the color appointed in the first inner circle nor in the second inner circle is owned by any player, in this case we take a look at the third inner circle. In the example, there is no blue nor red player, so yellow is gonna be the first player for this turn. When a first player has been designated, it is the turn of the galleon to move. At the first turn on or the next turn after the destruction of the galleon, we put the galleon in the harbor of the color appointed by the spin of the compass. In the example, in the blue harbor, at the beginning of each turn, the galleon moves by 2 squares, lengthwise and diagonally, in the direction of the harbor of the color appointed. In this example, in the direction of the yellow harbor. The galleon lets behind him a gold coin in each square he crosses except in the harbors. If the galleon crosses a second time a square where he has been and already let a gold coin still present, we put a second gold coin cumulatively. When the galleon has moved, it is the turn of the players to move. The ship pawns can only move lengthwise and diagonally on C-squares. There are 4 types of C-squares: calm C-square, harbor C-square, wave square, and Skull Island square. The crew pawns can only move lengthwise and diagonally on ground squares. There are 3 types of ground squares: jungle square, city square, and temple square. Each player can move by 4 squares maximum per turn on sea and on ground. In this example, the player will need 3 moves to get the treasure token. The whirlpool is a tile of 4 wave squares. The ship needs 1 move to get inside the whirlpool and needs 1 other move to get outside of it. There is no move needed inside of it. In this example, with the whirlpool, the player will only need 2 moves instead of 3 to get the treasure token. The edges of the board communicate with their opposing edge. The red edge communicates with the yellow edge. and the green edge communicates with the blue edge. In the example, the red ship will need 7 moves to get the treasure token, which is the equivalent of 2 turns. But if the same ship uses the edge, he is going to need 3 moves instead of 7 to reach the treasure token, which is the equivalent of only 1 turn. So 1 turn has been saved by choosing the right itinerary. When the player has moved, he does his action. Action follows the movement of the player because action can only be performed in the last square where the player ends up his movement. There is 4 actions a player can perform. Collecting treasure token. As we saw earlier, the player took a treasure token. When the player does, he can launch the number of dice indicated on the treasure token. In the example, 1 die is launched. The player scores 3, which means he is going to take 3 gold coins. If he performs a skull and crossbones, this is equivalent to a score of 7. So the player is going to take 7 gold coins, and as a side effect of getting a skull and crossbones, he is going to be chased by a pirate. Another example with 2 dice indicated. In this case, we launch 2 dice and the score is a sum, which means 8 gold coins in this example. If 3 dice were indicated, we would have launched 3 dice and get the sum of the score in gold coins. In this example, 7 plus 3 plus 7 equals 17 gold coins. And as a side effect, the player is chased by 2 pirates. Collecting pieces of treasure map. The goal of the game is to gather the 4 pieces of treasure map. The coordinates of the pieces of treasure map are given by reading the back of the treasure token that are found in the temples. How do we read the back of the treasure tokens? Let's take an example. First of all, we flip the treasure token to see its back. As you can see in this example, the treasure token is dark blue. If we take a look at the sea map, each player has 1. We can see 9 areas, each represented by 1 color. As you can imagine, the dark blue treasure token indicates that the piece of treasure map can be found in the dark blue area, which is at the southeast of the board. The piece of treasure map can only be found on the ground. We orientate the compass at the middle of the treasure token so that the north is targeting the red edge of the board and the south the yellow edge of the board. Then we take a look at the number 1 in the treasure token, which indicates in this example the northeast of the area. But as you can see that there is no ground in this tile, so we should take a look at number 2 that corresponds to the northwest of the area where there is ground but 4 squares possible. So we use again the treasure token by taking a look at the number 1, which indicates the northeast part of the island where there is ground. So we have the coordinates of the piece of treasure map. In order to get the piece of treasure map, the player has to reach the location indicated by the treasure token, and when he reaches the position, he can now exchange the treasure token against a piece of treasure map of his choice, number 1, 2, 3, or 4 in Roman figures in the limit of the pieces available. Purchase and deposit in cities. The player can purchase equipment cards in all the cities, but can only make a deposit in the city of his color. Concerning the equipment cards, this is how we should read them. The logo in the top left says if the bonus concerns hand-to-hand combat or range combat. The logo in the top right says if the bonus concerns the crew, the ship, or both of them. The middle of the card stands for the bonus. In the example, it increases the score of the die by 2. The logo in the bottom left says how many of the bonuses can be accumulated, and the logo in the bottom right says how much gold coins the card is going to cost. Concerning the deposit, when a player is in the city of his color, he can put his saving in his city, gold coins, treasure tokens, and pieces of treasure map. An item in a city cannot be used unless it is withdrawn by the player first. Cities are safe places. No fight can occur, even if only 1 player committed in the fight is in a city. Fights. There is 2 types of fights, hand-to-hand combat and range combat. Hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand combat happen when 2 players' spawns are in the same square, ship or crew. In the example, player 1, the yellow one, attacks player 2, the red one. Each player launches a die. The player with the highest score wins the fight. Let's take a look at an example where equipment cards are involved. In this case, we had +2/+2 to the score of the second player, who wins the fight. If there was only one equipment card involved with only one +2 bonus, in this case there is an equality. The players have to relaunch the dice until there is a winner. In the example 2, ships were involved, but the fight would have been exactly the same if two crews were involved. Range combat. Range combat concerns only the ship, not the crew. If two ships fight each other, each player has to use one cannonball equipment card in order to launch a die. Otherwise, if only one player spends a cannonball card, usable only once, he automatically wins the fight. Imagine player 1 and player 2 has a cannonball card, then the player with the highest score wins. Imagine player 2 has a cannon card that gives a +3 bonus at his die score in range attack, then player 2 wins. Imagine the same example, but this time player 1 has two cannonball cards instead of one, then he can use the second cannonball card to relaunch the die, hoping that this time he's going to win the fight. If a ship attacks a crew in a range attack, then it automatically wins because crew cannot fight in range combat, even if the player who is attacked has a cannonball card. But imagine player 2 owns a camouflage card. In this case, there is no fight, and the crew of player 2 is safe because camouflage cards bonus protects the crew from a range attack when the crew is on the ground. End of a combat. At the end of combat, the loser gives up all his pieces of treasure map, all his treasure token, and all his gold coins to the winner. The loser still keeps his equipment card and all the items that are safe in his city. The loser respawns in his harbor. An important element to notice is that the item follows the crew, not the ship. So if a ship is destroyed, it's gonna respawn in his harbor and the player will keep all these items. The ship will still be disadvantaged because ship and crew are now separate, so the ship will have to pick up the crew. Pirates move. When all the players have performed their action, then it is time for the pirate ships to move on. A pirate's move only when he is chasing a player. As we said before, when a player has taken a treasure token and has launched a die and got a score with a skull and crossbones, then a pirate chases him. A target token of the color of the player chased is put under the pirate ship in order to indicate who the pirate is chasing. Then the pirate moves by 2 per turn. When the player is in range, he attacks him, performing a hand-to-hand combat when he can, and a range combat otherwise, which is the case in this example. The player has no cannonball cards, so he loses. The ship is respawned in his harbor. The ship will try to pick up the crew in order to protect it using the whirlpool. But in the example, the pirate ship prevents the player from using the whirlpool unless he goes for hand-to-hand combat. The player chooses to use another way, but he has not enough moves to pick up the crew. The player ends up in his turn, and the pirate, still chasing the player, attacks the ship and the crew. The player has no cannonball cards and he couldn't buy one in the city because only the crew has items, and so only the crew can buy equipment, not the ship. So the pirate wins the fight. He is automatically teleported toward his den with all the player's items. If the player wants his items back, he would have to defeat the pirate in his den. Next level. At the end of a turn, when all the temples have been emptied, we go to the next level. Going to the next level means fulfilling all the temples with treasure tokens of the next level, treasure tokens with 1 die more. Except the last temple to be emptied, which stayed emptied. All the pirates destroyed reappeared in their skull islands. There is only 3 levels. After that, there is no level left. The temple after that are not fulfilled anymore, and the pirates remain destroyed. Galleon and pirate ships moved by 2 at each turn, whatever is the level. At level 1, the galleon gives 5 gold coins to the player who destroyed it, and the pirate ships have a +2 bonus in hand-to-hand combat and are not able to attack in range attack. At level 2, The galleon gives 10 gold coins to the player who destroyed it, and the pirate ships have a +4 bonus in hand-to-hand combat and a +3 bonus in range attack. At level 3, the galleon gives 15 gold coins to the player who destroyed it, and the pirate ship have +6 bonus in hand-to-hand combat and a +6 bonus in range attack. Those rules apply with 3 and 4 players. In a game with 2 players, there is only 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. And in a game in a solo mode, there is only the level 2, so there is no level upgrade. Also, there is a big difference in solo mode when the player gets a skull and crossbones on his die in a temple, he is not chased because he is automatically chased by another pirate each time he emptied a temple. At the beginning of the game, the player is already followed by one pirate. When the player loses a fight against a pirate, he loses the entire game. He is not respawned in his harbor except if only his ship is destroyed without his crew. If you find the solo game mode too easy, you can take the camouflage card out of the game to make it harder. End of the game. The game ends when the player has successfully gathered all the 4 different pieces of treasure map and reached the indicated coordinates. If there is an argue about the exact location of the hidden treasure, players can take a look at the back of the card map where there is the solution. Thanks for watching and enjoy the game!